Hi gang, it's Todd Nauck, and I'm back with the inked video, part 2 of this Black Bolt commission, portrait headshot illustration. So as you can see, I'm using the Pigma Micron markers here on this acid-free comic book backing board. I've been drawing on comic book backing boards for so long now. I started doing it at conventions for convention sketches, and I just like the way they work. They're a quality art board. They take if you get the right kind. Some have a gloss to them, so make sure you don't have this weird gloss on the actual board. Otherwise, your illustration will get jacked up really easily. So make sure you get one that has the regular kind of Bristol board sort of texture to it. So these are the kind of boards I often do my sketches on when I'm drawing the sketch prize for people who participate in my sketch retweet contest I run during my convention appearances on my Twitter account, which would be listed below in the description of this video. And I had talked about my convention commission sketch Twitter contests in the previous video as well. So this is a sped up video to make sure we could get it in under the 10 minutes. I'm using the Pigma Micron markers, starting off with a 0.8 for the initial bolder lines, the contours of the initial shapes. I'll come in with some smaller tipped markers for some of the tighter facial features around the eyes, nose, mouth area. So as I had mentioned in the previous video, when I do my pencil sketches or pencil drawing, I keep it pretty sketchy. I get just enough of the detail lines, just clean enough so I know where I want to put my finished inked lines, but I don't render out the illustration in perfect pencil because a lot of that pencil artwork is going to get erased and would disappear, and why spend that kind of time when I know what I'll do here in my inking stage. And that confidence that comes with doing the inks comes from lots and lots of practice. So get practicing, young artists. Practice as much as you can. And you may have noticed I used a tool at the beginning of this video when I was started in on inking the tuning fork on Black Bolt's forehead. Because that is in the foreground, I wanted to make sure that came in nice and clean up in the front. So I wanted to make sure those curved lines came in nice and clean. So instead of trying to do that freehand, and since a regular ruler is just straight lines, I needed a clean curved line. That's what a French curve comes in handy for, and I've used French curves in previous videos as well. So that was the tool I was using there at the beginning. Invest in a French curve and it'll make drawing your curved shapes a lot easier, especially when it comes to like tech or like a knife blade, like Wolverine's claws. I often use the French curve. So invest in one of those. If you just do a Google shopping search for French curve, you'll get that drafting tool coming up. So as you can see, I like to move the board around for whichever angle I need it to be at for when I do my cut my lines on the board here for whatever shape I'm drawing. So feel free to move your artboard around in whatever angle feels comfortable to you. You don't have to keep it straight up and down on the table and contort yourself. Make the board work for you. So we're going to have a lot of black coming in here for when I fill in all these black areas. So my initial thought here is just to ink in those shapes as and bordering them up so that when I come in with the brush marker, I can fill them in pretty easily. Some of the smaller parts I like to fill in with the marker, but when it comes to the bigger spots, you need something big and bold like a brush pen to make that happen. So now I'm coming in with the face and starting to put in the details in the eyes, where I feel really that's where a lot of the emotion and personality come into play. So real high value on the eyes being as just right as possible. The eyebrows, the crinkle of the nose or the expression in the mouth, they all come into play, as well as the body language. That's why in this battle ravaged, battle damaged shot of Black Bolt, he's kind of hunkered down a little bit. He's just been in battle, and I'm putting little tick marks all over to show the cuts and scrapes and dust particles that have accumulated on Black Bolt here. Now I've switched to a 0.01 point sized pigmamicron marker, so I'm going to get a finer tip. And it's good for those finer details, especially as I get into the nose here, the nostrils, um, the lines across the nose to help convey that he's just been in a fight. It's a little bruised up a bit, and I'll be drawing in some spots here where I'll be coloring in blood later on. But as I mentioned in the previous video, the video 3 will not be a color video, it will be a grayscale video. So you might have seen artists' grayscale type of illustrations online, where it's just different shades of gray, but it gives a look of color. I'll be doing that in this video, so make sure you tune into part 3 in the following week. So as you can see there, we got blood coming down from his nose, running down to his mouth, his lip, and onto his chin. So it's really fun putting in these little tiny details, but one thing you have to be really careful with, especially it can be a common thing I see with young artists, is that they overdo it when it comes to these tiny little details. It takes some practice to really figure out where and why do you put in these details and how much. It takes a lot of practice just to get to that point where you know you've done enough, and it's really kind of a gut sort of thing as well as a trial and error sort of thing. Coming in with my Staedtler block eraser to erase all those pencil lines. About time to do all the spotting of the black areas. But as I was mentioning, when it comes to those little detail lines, try to find a rhyme or reason. Don't clutter it with those little tiny details. Be very specific in where you're putting them in there, because sometimes less is more. So you want to be careful in the reasons why you put them in there and how many you put in there, and the size and shape. You don't want them big, thick, bold lines necessarily. It's better to start off with little thin lines, and you can make them thicker if you need to. But you don't want them to overpower. You don't want those little battle lines to overpower the main structure of the character's face, like his nose, his jawline, his mouth. If those little tick marks I put all throughout his face there were too thick and too bold, then it would just be too much competition. You just want them to be subtle so that the viewer is able to recognize this guy's been jacked up, but it's the main focus is on who the character is. So I'm using a Pentel Pocket brush pen here to fill in all the black areas. It makes it just easier just to come in and use this brush tip to fill in that spot and keep it nice and clean. Trying to do this with a Pigma marker at the sizes I was working with would have just taken forever, would have looked really streaky and not given me the type of coverage that I would want. Leaving a little bit of white in there in the black areas that I spot in, because it helps kind of convey the battle damage that I want. It's not perfect, it's not pristine, it's got a little bit of grit to it, so that's something I'm keeping in mind as well. So there's not much more here that I'm going to be having to do to finish spotting these blacks, and once I've done that, we'll be primed and ready for the grayscale, which will be in the third video coming up real soon in just 1 week. So I really appreciate y'all tuning in for this video. Like I said, this is someone's prize choice from my Twitter sketch retweet contest, so be sure to tune in. I'll be appearing at a couple of more conventions this year, one in Long Beach in September and New York Comic Con in October. So if you follow me on toddnauck.com, I'm always posting which conventions you can see me at. So, but even if you can't come to the convention, follow me on Twitter. If you see my sketches, click retweet, and then maybe you'll be one of the lucky winners to be chosen at random. It's a random draw. I don't pick them. I use a random number generator, so it's fair to everyone. So if you retweet my sketches, maybe the random number generator will pick you to be the winner. So there's all the official rules on my website. So here's the finished inks. You can see Black Bolt's looking a little worse for wear, and Copic Grayscale coming up next week in part 3. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.